This man built the same machine 5,127 times. The first 5,126 were failures. He spent 15 years on a vacuum cleaner, fell over 100,000 pounds into debt, and was turned down by every major manufacturer he approached because the entire industry made its money selling the one thing he wanted to delete: the bag. Today, his company sells in more than 80 countries. He is one of the richest people in Britain, and the brands that laughed him out of the room now compete against the machine they refused to build. This is the story of James Dyson, and the most expensive lesson in persistence in modern business.
Take a seat. This meeting has one item on the agenda. How a man failed 5,126 times in a row and called it research. There is no fraud in these minutes. No villain, just an engineer, a shed, a mountain of broken prototypes, and a wife who paid the bills while he chased an idea everyone else had already dismissed. The lesson in here is simple, and it is brutal. Most people quit at failure number 10. Listen closely, and you will hear exactly where the money was hiding. The minutes run 9 minutes. Stay for the vote at the end.
It began with annoyance. By the late 1970s, James Dyson was already an inventor. He had designed a flat-bottomed boat called the Sea Truck and a wheelbarrow that rolled on a ball instead of a wheel, called the ball barrow. The ball barrow actually sold well. But Dyson learned a savage lesson from it. Because the patent was owned by the company and not by him personally, he was eventually pushed out and lost the rights to his own invention. He swore he would never make that mistake again. Then came the vacuum. One day, cleaning his home, Dyson noticed his expensive machine had lost almost all of its suction. He opened it up and found the culprit. The bag was clogging with fine dust, and once the pores of the bag filled, air could no longer pass through. The machine was, by design, built to get worse the more you used it. He saw the answer in an unlikely place. At a local sawmill, Dyson watched a giant industrial cyclone, a cone-shaped tower that spun air at high speed to fling sawdust out of it, with no bag and no filter to clog. He asked a simple question. What if a vacuum cleaner worked like that, using a spinning vortex of air to throw the dust out, so the machine never lost suction and never needed a bag at all? It was an elegant idea. Turning it into a working product nearly destroyed him. Dyson began building prototypes by hand, one at a time, in a coach house behind his home. He would change a single variable, build the machine, test it, measure the result, and start again. One prototype, then another, then another. The failures piled into the hundreds, then the thousands. Over roughly 5 years, he built 5,127 versions of the same cyclonic vacuum. 5,126 of them did not work well enough. The cost was not just time. To fund the obsession, the family sank deep into debt, more than 100,000 pounds of it, an enormous sum at the time. He borrowed against the house. His wife, Deirdre, kept the family afloat by teaching art. There were 3 children and almost no steady income. By any reasonable measure, this was not a business. It was a man bankrupting himself over a vacuum cleaner. When he finally had a machine that worked, the real wall appeared. Dyson took his bagless vacuum to the great manufacturers of Britain, Europe, and America, expecting them to license it. Almost every one of them said no, and the reason was chilling. The vacuum industry did not just sell machines. It sold the replacement bags year after year, a quiet and enormous river of profit. A vacuum that never needed a bag was not an opportunity to them. It was a threat to the very thing that made them rich. Worse, an early deal with an American company collapsed into a bitter, costly legal fight that dragged on for years. Dyson had the better mousetrap, and the world's biggest companies were determined not to let him build it.
In this building, we have a phrase for an industry that rejects a better product because it threatens the worst one they already sell. We call it a moat, right up until the moment somebody fills it in and walks across.
So, Dyson stopped asking permission. If no one in the West would build his machine, he would find someone who would. In 1986, a Japanese company agreed to license the design and sell it in Japan as a bright pink machine called the G-Force. It was priced at around $2,000, a luxury object, and it became a status symbol among the Japanese design crowd. It even won a major design prize. For the first time, the Cyclone made money, and that money bought James Dyson something priceless: time and proof that he had been right all along. Armed with cash and patents he now owned outright, he made the decision that defined him. Remembering the ball barrow, he refused to license his idea to anyone ever again. Instead, he would build his own factory, his own research center, and sell the machine under his own name, keeping control of everything. In 1993, in England, the Dyson Dual Cyclone, the DC-01, finally went on sale. The product looked like nothing else on a shop shelf. It was gray and bright yellow, with a clear plastic bin so you could actually see the dust spinning inside. Rivals thought the see-through container was a mistake, that nobody wanted to look at their own dirt. They were wrong. Customers loved it. Within around 18 months, the DC-01 was the best-selling vacuum cleaner in the entire United Kingdom, outselling every one of the established brands that had turned him away. The companies that had rejected him scrambled to copy the idea. One of them, Hoover, launched its own bagless cyclonic vacuum. Dyson sued for patent infringement, and in the year 2000, he won, with a court ordering Hoover to pay millions in damages. A senior Hoover executive later admitted, on the record, that the company deeply regretted not buying Dyson's technology when it had the chance, because, in his words, they could have buried it and protected their bag business. From that single machine, Dyson built an empire. Bladeless fans, hand dryers, cordless vacuums, even a hair dryer that sold for hundreds of dollars. He poured money into research, and he was not afraid to lose. He spent around £500 million trying to build an electric car, then canceled the whole project when the numbers did not work, and simply moved on. He kept the company private, owning almost all of it himself, was knighted by the Queen, and became one of the wealthiest people in the United Kingdom, worth well over $10 billion. Not bad for a man whose business plan was, essentially, to fail 5,126 times and refuse to stop.
Minutes recorded. Before we adjourn, one question for the room. And do leave your answer in the comments. James Dyson failed more times than most people will ever attempt anything. And every one of those failures was a step he chose to take again. So tell me, is genius really just talent? Or is it simply the refusal to quit, repeated 5,127 times? Next meeting, a company that was offered the chance to buy a tiny streaming startup for $50 million, laughed in the founder's face, and was bankrupt within a few years. Blockbuster, subscribe, attendance is taken, minutes recorded, meeting adjourned.